But we never did achieve what we set out to do in terms of folks of color, Black Americans. And I feel like what's about to happen, and we saw this in the University of California system, Berkeley in particular, we know what's about to transpire. You're going to see fewer and fewer Black students accepted at some of the most prestigious schools in the United States, and that's not a good outcome either.
Well, I'll tell you what is a good outcome, is empowering Americans of every stripe and color, starting at a young age, to have access to a high-quality education. The problem starts early on, so school choice is a great answer to actually empower families starting at a young age instead of a Band-Aid on the back end.
What's your pitch to Black America? Basically, since Eisenhower in his second term, it's rare when a Republican candidate can get 10% of the Black vote. What's your pitch to Black America as you're casting about for a new national identity?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is I don't view there as being one Black America, just like there's no one white America or one Indian American America. I reject that premise at the outset. But why do we take a look at this demographic that tends to vote Democrat? Yeah. I think a big part of the problem is Republicans have not explained what our intentions are. And I say our. I mean, I'm an America First conservative. I am using the Republican Party as a vehicle to advance my set of ideals. I'm very open about that. I'm not a partisan politician or hack. I could care less for political partisanship. Most of it bores me. But I think let's look at the facts. I mean, Lyndon Johnson created a so-called great society. It's the biggest misnomer in modern political history. That wasn't a very great society for the very Black people it was supposed to help. Paid mothers government money to have an incentive to get the dad out of the house so they could make more money. So how you get to over 70% of Black kids being born into two-parent households in the 1960s to less than 30% today, and I think it's an affront. I don't think that's been good for Black Americans across the country.
But isn't it also true, the reason, I mean, and I'm thinking of somebody like Jackie Robinson, who in 1960 campaigned for Richard Nixon, in 1964 campaigned for Democrats because Republicans voted against the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of the mid-60s, when much of the country was still under legal segregation, where it was illegal to serve Blacks and whites equally. It was illegal for Blacks to go to certain schools and things like that. And it strikes me as, kind of, if you start the clock in 1968 or 1972, it's one thing. But, this, I mean, I think this is part of the Republican problem with an appeal to Black Americans is that, yeah.
I mean, that's ancient history at this point for the partisans.
No, it is literally, if you're talking about, Lyndon Johnson, we're talking about the 60s and Barry Goldwater in 64.
Fair enough. I was talking about Lyndon Johnson because many of those policies are still in effect today, right? Civil Rights Act did pass, and there's broad consensus in favor of the Civil Rights Acts today. I think that there should not be, in my opinion, broad consensus around the vestiges of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. So that's the distinction I draw. Right. I mean, the Republican Party is the party that was the abolitionist party, and in the post-Reconstruction era also wanted to put guns in the household of Black Americans so they could actually secure those civil rights, as I was talking about in that clip. So go back, I mean, these parties, like I said, these labels mean very little if you go far enough back. Parties have flip-flop. But what I say is that the policies I care about want to go to the root causes. Restore the nuclear family structure as a cultural norm in this country, including in Black America. Restore a focus on education. School choice is a big part of this. Empowering many Black families that are trapped in ghetto-like communities for their kids to be trapped in those schools. And I use that word intentionally to provoke the point that we're really confining people to the public school systems where they live without school choice programs. Democrats are the ones who are opposed to school choice programs, right?
Donald Trump was the most pro-school choice president in history. The federal government obviously plays a limited role in education. Why would you be better than Donald Trump, who is who is the leading Republican candidate, former president himself, former businessman? Why are you better than Donald Trump?
I think he was going to take the America First agenda about as far as he was going to go. I'm now taking it further and taking on issues that Trump was, frankly, I think, a little bit reluctant to touch.